All right, welcome to Anagalactic. This is our fourth in a series on geology, quite rapid, so we're now looking at the main mountain system of Earth, although it's only one of two of the main mountain systems of Earth, because you're looking at approximately half of the Earth. That is Asia, Africa sticking down, Australia in the lower right, and what appears to be Greenland. It's hard to tell with a Mercator projection. That could be the Baffin Islands. But you will see Nova Zembla up there, and there are some other rather large looking island groups where they're actually quite small. But the main focus in a Mercator is the equatorial belt, where indeed you will see, I believe I can use my pointer to assist us here, but there, I think you can see that. This is, where's the equator? Isn't it about right there? Passes through Indonesia, passes through basically the Congo region of Africa. It's somewhere where this dent is in Africa, is about where the equator is. So all of this is north of the equator, except if you go down here, there's a broken piece. There is also a very interesting vertical ridge, which has been commented on, and some papers have been written on this rather uniquely vertical undersea formation, which of course could only have been discovered in modern times with space photography and oceanographic seismic measurements was the original. But now with space photography, you see we have access to a wealth of information, which includes that ridge, which we will not cover now. But that is half of the mountain system of Earth. Now you can see that these squiggly lines go all the way into North Africa. That is the Atlas mountain range. There are the famous Apennines, separating France from Spain, essentially. There's another mountain range here whose name I'm sorry, but I do not know. These are the Alps. And then something sticks out down here into the Aegean Islands, going through Greece. And then it connects with this line, which goes all the way to China. And what does that mean? It is a distinct orogenic range, a mountain range. And it looks like it occupies this band north of the equator, so that is a major geological feature of the Earth. This enormous mountain band that runs about, looks like to me, about 30 degrees above the equator. Broad, I haven't made strict measurements here, but we'll just say 30, maybe 35. What is the latitude of, for instance, Spain here? Well, you can see that it's pretty much the same from west over here to east over here. It includes the entire Himalayan range, then crosses over the entire Iranian plateau where it seems to be in two pieces. This looks like it looped around somehow. According to the broad strokes here, that would need to be interpreted. I'm not prepared to do that at this moment because I just discovered this map. These are called, strangely, the Alpen, because they're named after the Alps, because in Europe, they're part of the same thing that the Himalaya mountain range is, which I was not fully acquainted with this connection between the Alps and the Himalayas. Although I've been staring at it all my life, I have seen this sort of map before, but let's just switch the map here. Because we've only seen right now half the Earth. Because where's the Pacific Ocean? Where's South America? Where's Alaska? Where's the United States? I mean, we have the two Americas over there. What's going on? All we can see of North America or South America is what looks to me to be the northern part of the Baffin Island chain, which is north of Greenland and to the west, basically. And so we do see that, but no Pacific, no Americas. What's going on? Let's just... All right, so this is Google Earth looking at part of the other side. You may recognize that as Western North America, essentially extending down to the Gulf of California, Baja Peninsula, and all the way up to what we call Canada. So this is from Mexico to Canada. And this is called Google Earth. If you have not used Google Earth, you are missing out, Daddy-O. And I've already typed in the Falkland Islands. We'd like to go to the other side of the Pacific right now. So I'll just press search. and see what this magic machine, oh, it's turning something. I think we're on our way to the Falkland Islands, and there they are. Now the reason for bringing this into view, as I now will zoom out, and now you see a larger structure. A larger structure. This is undersea. There's dark blue and light blue, quite distinct. And there's the tip of South America. I think we're just about to see the tip of Antarctica. Let's zoom out just a little more. Holy Toledo! Well, I guess you'd have to say that's a surprise. What in the world is that? Okay, without really, I have made several videos about this, but let's just take a little closer view here, maybe. What the... Well, let's just see where that points. Let's zoom out. There's the whole globe. There's Antarctica. Okay. So that's not exactly the Alps or the Himalayas. That's the opposite side of everything. And if we twist this just a little bit to get that giant, obscene tongue out of the way, look at that trench. That's right next to the Andean Mountains. Well, look, there's kind of like, if you were to see this a little closer, you might see a mountain range. There is a mountain range in there on that giant sheet of ice. That's what people who go there comment on when they come back from Antarctica. You know what they talk about? Ice. They say it's really hard to get used to just the fact that that's all you're ever going to see is ice. Well, not if you go to those mountains. They found fossils in those mountains. So that's a real continent underneath all of that ice. And you can see some of it up here because it's more toward where there might not be ice. And indeed, there is less ice there. And that's the northern tip. But look at that trench. Look at that right off the tip. What is that? Well, that's part of this. And there's South America and Antarctica in the same picture with what looks like, just to me, I looked into this. This is a well-known structure here. Those are volcanoes, all of which are active. Each one, there's 14 of those. Although in some cases, you'd have to say it's either 13 or 14 or 14 and 15. It is kind of things are transient down there in some oceanographic sense. But there's a giant trench right in front of these volcanoes. So these volcanoes give every appearance to have arisen in some way connected with that trench, which just looks to me, I'm sorry to be obscene again, but does that look like a tongue? It looks like a tongue. Look how it's just blown. And there's these cracks at the bottom. I don't know if you can take a look at those cracks. What's that? Look at these side things. What's causing that? Well, you may be able to explain it, you may not, but you certainly notice it. Well, that's inside this tongue. So now when we dial around and just get the whole Pacific, just going to try to remove any landmass. And look at that. It just turns to water. It's like pure water. I mean, I don't know if you can see that that's just pure water. I mean, there's something up here. If you dial it, you see, then comes Antarctica. So you got to keep Antarctica down. There's already New Zealand is in there. You can see part of Mexico here. You can see the whole rim. Well, that's the point. It looks like a perfect circle. Well, that's kind of unusual for a planet to have so much water on just one side. And you notice that down here, now we're getting, oh my God, what is the hell is that? Well, it's another giant trench. Yeah, I think you can see it just winds around here like something really dramatic happened, because look at these trenches. This is called the Ring of Fire. I didn't make up this name. It's called the Ring of Fire for fairly well delineated reasons, but look at this. There's a big old gap here. Doesn't it look like this may have once been connected on this? I don't know if you can see this hand floating around, but I am using a pointer. I'm just never sure if it's working. Well, here's a view of the Earth you don't get that often. Let's put Antarctica at the top and just look what's down below it. Well, there's this mess. Look at that. That's the mess that just became of this area, which looks like it has been subject to some mighty influences. First of all, there's a ring of fire that you can see from outer space, but only at the rim. And that whole thing we're looking at is part of the Ring of Fire, just encircling this global ocean with a ring of fire. There's no fire. Oh, what about Hawaii? See if we can find a little fire in the Pacific. These are beautiful. This is the, I believe, Kwajalein series of coral atolls that just dot the ocean. There's an atoll, an atoll, an atoll. Many of these were the subject of nuclear experiments, or at least a couple of them were. Bikini, Kwajalein, which I to this day don't know if I'm pronouncing right. But there's our angel's eye view of really, we never did find Hawaii, did we? I'm not sure which way we're oriented. Okay, there's New Zealand. So I'm guessing Hawaii's going to be up here. Look at all those cracks in the bottom of the ocean. I think we're getting close to Hawaii. Is that it? Is that Hawaii? I think we found Hawaii. Let's zoom in there. Oops. Those are the Galapagos. I got that wrong. So I'm going to guess that Hawaii is probably more over here. Am I going the right way? Which country is that? Am I on the wrong side of the world? I might be. Oh, I think we're getting closer to Hawaii. A lot of ocean out there. It's a big, fat, look at that. What's that splatter? Well, whatever that splatter is, it's splattered all over the North Pacific. Just a desolation of splatter. But with this long ridge right here, look at what's out in just about the middle of the Pacific. That's the Hawaiian island chain, which I think we're looking at such that Midway is going to be right about there. Am I correct? Or is it over here? I just saw a name flash up. Oh, that's the Johnston Atoll. Well, this is Midway somewhere here. Well, it should be. I don't think I have labels. Anyway, you can see Hawaii is right there. It's south to north rather than north to south. But, my goodness. So that's our Pacific Ocean, which does look impressive, but right in the middle there is Hawaii, sticking on that big thing. So we haven't seen all the mountain ranges of the world when we have seen merely, if I get it right, is this it? No, it's this one there. The Alp Himalaya. There's a whole list of mountain ranges that are included here, which is too long to actually list. There's a surprising number of mountain ranges in this thing that you see, which you can just bring up on your screen by typing in mountain ranges of the world, I guess. Yeah, some professor, you know. Well, I could expand this, but I'm not sure what it'll do. Did that actually expand it? I'm not sure. Oh, see, this is what I was afraid of. Uh-oh. So I lost it. Now I have to do this again. Open image in new tab. I think that does it. Does that restore our image? There we go. Well, that's a little better, I'd have to say. All right, let's see if we can scroll over here. That's North Africa. That's a lot of mountains, Daddy-O. Just swirling around. Doesn't that look like writing? It looks like a language. So that's written into the face of the earth. You see there's a lot of, there's a lot involved in that writing, because right here, that's the top of the world is right in here. But Mount Kailas is a little bit over this way, I think. Considered to be the holiest mountain on earth. Just, I guess, on some kind of consensus. Matheson went there. That's quite a hike. You don't go to Mount Kailas unless you are one determined hombre. Because once you get there, there's stuff there. There's like a temple, a hut, somewhere between a temple and a hut at the base of Mount Kailas, where apparently there's just always at least somebody wandering around somewhere, just lost in rapture, because this to them is like the most unbelievable thing they can even imagine. And I've seen it, and I'm just adding my voice. You don't come away from that mountain unaffected, but it's in this whole thing, which, as I've been trying to point out in my own, obviously obtuse way, that begins in the Alps, which the Europeans are quite familiar with. And when this guy figured this out, which is quite a while ago, I think it's about it's at 2026 now. It was in the 19th century, so more than 120 years ago, I'm just going to guess. But it was back there. I'm pretty sure it's earlier than that. This guy came up with this. So that's the reason for saying it's called the Alpine Mountain Complex. Rather arbitrary when it's including the Himalaya. If you're going to call it anything, call it by the center. So I'm just going to suggest this thing just going loop. Where does that go through? Oh, just all the civilizations of Earth. This is where civilizations tend to, right on that big, long, cursive thing. And what is that? Well, it just includes the Himalayas. But then it swirls across India, Pakistan. Afghanistan just does a big dip, just ignores Afghanistan, leaves it alone. Meanwhile, there's this like tilde up here. This is where a lot of cultured people will end up living. Like Islam will just really do well here. Actually, what you're looking at is pretty much everywhere Islam did well. I think that's fair to say. Islam really did well. Although, if you go into Europe, you see that's actually where they were stopped. They didn't get any further than these squiggly lines. But wherever you see these squiggly lines, that's Islam, baby. It's there. Well, that's the mountain ranges on that side of the earth. But as I wanted to really carefully point out, there is the other side of the earth. And look at the difference. I think you can see it. Is that working? Let's do this. There is the Asian side, going all the way into Europe, all the way down into Indonesia, pretty much ignoring Africa, although not quite. You remember, let's just look, we're scientists, we need to see, oh, cracky, that's Africa, I'm sorry. That's Africa. So it did get into Africa, but is that really Africa? Well, not really, because look, just what's south of that is the Sahara Desert. And then if you just kind of notice, everything south of that squiggly line, except for India, is a gigantic desert. So India is quite unusual. Oh, yes, it is. It's a fresh new arrival into the belly, which I've been heard to say the AH more than once of Asia, it has this thing stuck in it from below. And plate tectonics, which we will dabble in, we will at least understand what it is. And then you'll find out that there are actually two quite different plate tectonic models. Because plate tectonics is one of the youngest sciences we have. And they're not sure of anything. They do have to guess, though, and I have run to the defense of my fellow scientists. Yes, they sound crazy. Yes, they may know they've been disproved. But don't expect them to stop. They're going to say what they think the data most likely says. And they're just not coming down off of that. Because really, isn't that what we're all doing? We're trying to get some kind of consensus. Well, they have some kind of consensus. But it's young. And we know from cosmology and really the early days of any science, you're going to stay kind of young pretty much forever. And you're always young. Which means you're going to hope that your model gets better. So we're in the early stages of that. But if you do this, suddenly there are no mountain ranges. That's not quite true. The edge of this circle is the other mountain range. So there are two. This circle is one of them. It's called the Ring of Fire. And in the center, as you can see quite plainly, in the center of the Ring of Fire is nothing but uninterrupted ocean. If you now flip to the opposite side, you see land and mountains. So I would say just offhand that is a significant geological feature of the Earth. That on one side is an ocean that is ringed by a ring of fire, which is nowhere in this picture. Am I right? Let's just make sure. Let's expand, get a little more in here, see the whole thing. Well, that's actually as far as, hold on. How about this? Is that doing it? Yeah. So there you can see, oh, that's what I wanted. There's Europe and the Sahara Desert. Europe and the Sahara Desert. There are several nations in this region, but that's entirely desert. And then you go down here, there's this little mountain range down here. I'm just going to zoom this up so you can see more of Africa. And look at Africa, it's not included in this, but it does have its own mountain range down here. So that really, I would have to say, since Kilimanjaro is in there, about where this thing is, there's a mountain range down in Africa. But not most of Africa. Most of Africa is south of this squiggly line right here called the Atlas Mountains. This entire region from the Pacific Ocean right here, the Atlantic Ocean right here, all the way to the Gulf of Aden, which is an arm of the Arabian Sea, which is an arm of the Indian Ocean, from the furthest western part of Africa, all the way across the widest part of Africa to the tip of Somalia. This has several names down here. Eritrea is down here. Ethiopia is an ancient nation, one of the former greats among the big four down here, just controlling this area of Africa. It's always been strongly religious. And they still are to this day quite religious people. And they live here where the Sahara Desert ends. It ends at the Blue Nile. And this is the Nile Basin, which is fed from this mountain chain. So that's a major river system. It's entirely south of this line. it looks like it's its own continent. That has been proved in modern times. That entire separate continent is properly called a continent because it is a single plate. It is a single plate. And that's one of the largest of the plates, but this one up here, this is the biggest. But it's rivaled by the North American plate, and there is a South American plate, and there's a rather confounding system of cruddy things that pass for a plate down near Australia, which may or may not be part of Australia. They're still arguing about it. But there's another kind of a plate called Australia. And the Antarctican plate is quite well known. These are the plates of the Earth, of which there are from 6 to 7 is preferred, to 8 to 12, to about 20, depending on what you call a plate. And now we're going to look at one of the smallest of the plates, which rivals the Nazca plate, and it rivals the Fuga plate, the one in Vancouver. That's a plate. That island, Vancouver Island, is a plate. It's a small plate, but the plate we want to look at is on this map. And so we'll turn that one off and this one on. And now I'm going to type something in to Google Earth to make it go to that plate. A very small plate. And it's worth knowing about. As soon as I find my tool, oh, there it is. I forgot the icon for Google Earth Pro, which you can get for free. I hope you like the Falkland Islands. We're just going to return to where we were. And there are the Falkland Islands. We're going to zoom out. And there is the Scotia Plate. And you can see that it's hard to identify where is the plate. But essentially, it used to be over here, and now it's over here. So that's a very small plate, which looks like it was boogie boarding. It's a plate of the Earth that was just shot. And in recent times, actually within the past 30 years, if I'm not sadly mistaken from I just found out about this month, is that there was another strike that's been discovered. The iridium signature is there. It struck right here where this little hand is and blasted this mountain range to smithereens and shot part of the plate all the way over here where it's sitting as this little tongue, which is the result of what has been estimated to be as little as days. And actually what I heard, which you may not credit, I'm still checking this, hours. This is 12 hours after the Eltanin strike that this plate was shot through a mountain range. And this contains part of that mountain range, which currently ends at this obvious trench, which can be explained, and this rim of volcanoes, which we're now going to close in on a little bit, that has a name, that island chain, those are all volcanoes. They're active. They're all active. And there's one of them. And there are 3 of them. And there are 6 or 7 of them. 8. And if you looked around a little closer, you may find more, because it's definitely in the same arc. You may find more, but these are the main ones. I said 14 because that was my maximum count, but there are 3, 4, 5, that's a big one, 6, 7, or 8. I'll say 7 to keep it, because I'm saying it's more, but I'm not finding them. I don't know where I got that from. They may be way out here. Just want to home in. No, I may be wrong. Well, it's not the first time this professor has been found wrong in his research. But you can see it's kind of an extension of this. That's called South Georgia. These are called the South Sandwich Islands. There is something over here you can see is bigger. What is that? That is not the Falkland Islands, but what is it? It is unnamed. So nobody, there is, oh, Coronation Island. Well, that's a new one on me. I never noticed that. But that's right across this tongue from the Falkland Islands. So these are the sister islands of the Falkland Islands, which is sitting on something like a Bermuda Plateau. What do I mean by Bermuda Plateau? Look at that continental shelf right there. Doesn't it look like it's been blown from west to east? Well, if you look down here, you see the exact same effect on the other side mirrored. But up here, the shoal or continental shelf is through here, through the what is called the Antarctican Peninsula. It's been shattered. It was shattered by the Scotia Plate, which was propelled, and this took, current estimate, 12 hours. This is documented, and more than one researcher has noted that it certainly looks like there was a strike of a bolide from outer space by definition, either a comet or an asteroid, as always. But up here, the other strike that was first discovered, before that one, this is the shoal that I was talking about. We're going to zoom in, and that's the Bahamas. And look how different colored it is. It actually is that beautiful. There is nobody who denies the beauty of the Bahamas. But that is a shoal that is part of this big one. And look at that big trench right there. Well, that trench may have an explanation because right about, if I get this right, the explosion of the bolide that struck here, where the Caribbean Sea is now, an asteroid struck there. Right about where the hand is moving around, it's somewhere on this shelf. Although I think you can see that things changed rapidly after that bolide strike. Well, what was discovered there's the Galapagos. We're going due south. There's that giant ridge. Somewhere out there is Easter Island. Can we find Easter Island? I'm always curious about this. Oh, I think that may be it. Yes, it is. That's Hangaroa, which I'm just going to assume. I never heard it called that I can recall, but Hangaroa, that's Easter Island. So that's out in the middle of absolute freaking nowhere. I'm not even sure that's it. Is it in there? I don't think it's on this thing. Am I like way off base here? Well, we could type it in. Where's Easter Island? I just love this program. This is Google Earth Pro. You can get it for free. They want you to have it. It's great. So we want Easter Island. And it chooses that. It belongs to Chile. Sure it does. Whatever. Oh, is that? So I was right. So Easter Island is also called, and I just learned this for real, Hangaroa. So I was able to see the total solar eclipse from this island using modern technology. I saw it in real time, minus the speed of light, a few relay delays. Basically within, you could say, a couple of seconds. I was looking at it with the people who were there on Easter Island, and we saw the total solar eclipse. So I'm really attracted, but I think you see it's way, way out there. So now we just continue on back to where we see the Scotia Plate. And this hand shows where the explosion was from the Eltanin Impactor, which was probably from the same series of bolide strikes, which also struck in Boltish, Ukraine, a smaller one. But these are rather large strikes. And the Chicxulub was 1 million Sarbomba strength, which is 100 million megatons. But the Eltanin strike is considered to be more powerful yet. So the Earth was lambasted with at least two extremely powerful meteoric strikes, which caused mega tsunamis. That's in Wikipedia. Here is the obvious mega super hyper tsunami, which not only blasted a whole ton of water in all directions, but blasted open an entire mountain range and left it clean. So that really caused a change in the Earth's geology, geography, everything. Because what happened from this Scotia plate, if we simply rotate and see where it's pointing, where is it pointing if the blast was here, and you see it rotate south? That is due to some later movements it is now, but if you just point it as if it were the barrel of some vicious snake of a gun and see where it's just tending to, I think you're starting to see something come into view where it's pointing, which is essentially along this arc, where there are a bunch of cracks. And it also, as it's turning, reveals another series of cracks, all of which is aimed explicitly at the south end of Africa. And if you look and just follow the trend, you'll see that if this was a megatsunamic blast that left this tongue, these series of cracks, and these radiating lines of cracks, it's pointing right there at the Cape of Good Hope. But if you continue to see how it might have looked, because this really took a long time to settle. But what happened initially, within days, this blast shot through here. And if you continue, the cracks continue. Now there's a series of vertical cracks, all of which is aligned. And this is now pointing at India. And you see the cracks are along here. And India is separated on the other side of this Indian Ocean. And here's India that was blown off of here and swept into this plate where it gouged up the entire plateau of Tibet, including the entire Himalaya mountain range, which ends up here at this jumble of humanity, which has a bunch of stands, and I am so vastly interested in this. But now if you look at the landmass which we began to study, there's the mountain system of Earth. There it is. There it is. That's the mountain system, right where India was blasted into that plate from all the way down here. That did it. That blast made the Himalaya mountains. That did. The Eltanin strike did it. You can see it. Watch where it points. Look at that blast. That snapped this mountain chain. Blasted this way. This is mega hyper super tsunami. It would have begun petering out somehow by the time it got here, but this affected the lithosphere. This changed the entire surface of the Earth, where now this has been blasted down into a basin, and these mountain ranges rose up afterward. We're not positive about all of this, but the sequence is extremely rapid. This that you're looking at is entirely desert. That orange is desert. There's India. lush. This is due to a lot of different effects, but the Himalaya mountain range is this entire brown plateau. If you rotate it, it follows the Alpine sequence. And that cursive line that we began by looking at curls through here and ends up here. And it ends. And then you find this mid-Atlantic ridge. And then we get into plate tectonics. What caused this crack? This crack is active. It's going very slowly now, and you can see the transverse cracks. That has been studied to the point of we know a lot about that system. But it is part of this system. And that crack continues down here. And it circles around. And it comes up here to India. And here's that strange linear feature. A straight line of hundreds of kilometers. And it's aligned with this one above it. And that's where the water went. And it ends here in what I believe is called the Bay of Bengal. And it smushed everything here and made this ridge. On the other side, the pressure wave struck here. So this explosion of a extra megatsar bombic strength, right about here where this little hand is, blasted in this direction and blasted in that direction also. And that created the entire geology and geography of the Earth, all the way up here, but this was caused as well by a second strike right here. That was a second bolide. There's another one in Ukraine, and that's called the Baltish. I'll type that in. Boltysh. Baltish Srednya. I should know what that means. We want the Baltish Crater. I don't know if it has this. It doesn't have the Baltish Crater. I may be spelling it wrong. Well, let's see what Srednya means. That'll take us somewhere in Ukraine. Here we go. We're spinning into Ukraine now. I love this program. That may be Baltish. It looks like it could be. There's the farmland of Baltish. Well, Ukraine is mostly farmland. It certainly would be out here. Which is out where? Well, you should see the outlines of Ukraine pretty soon. What's that? That's the Dnieper River. You, of course, want to know where is Chernobyl. That's upstream. I think. Let's keep going out. Okay, there's Ukraine. And there you see the outlines of modern Ukraine. Kiev is way up here. We want the Baltish Crater, which I will now, for a dancing and dining pleasure, look up in another tool, which I must turn on. Turn this off. And we want now the Baltish Crater. I don't believe that I've ever heard that iridium was discovered in this one. This is considered to be quite ancient, but I mean, you get tired of hearing that, of course. Everything is quite ancient. So we do want the Wikipedia. I always rely on if I see that right away. I don't see it, so I'm going to type it in. Baltish Crater, Wikipedia. Yes. There's a Baltish Crater. And it is at 48 degrees north and 32 degrees east. I don't know why it doesn't The crater is 24 kilometers in diameter and less than 1 million years younger than the Chicxulub Crater. So this is considered to be a more recent strike than the already proved to have happened Chicxulub Crater. This happened more recently, according to the modern modeling, which has its reasons, although they certainly can be argued. And the radiometric dating reduced the uncertainty. They looked for U-238 decay products. I don't see anything about iridium, which is how the other two strikes were discovered. So apparently I would just assume iridium was not discovered in it, so that's not worth even mentioning since it wasn't found. So whatever the case, it is definitely an impact crater. The crater is known in its diameter and a lot of things about it, and it's more recent than the one we just saw in the Yucatan Peninsula area of the Caribbean Sea, which is older than the Boltish strike. Now, the Eltanin Impact, before we close this video off, so you won't have to look it up yourself, let's just see what it says in Wikipedia about the Eltanin Crater. Crater is the word I've learned usually gets the attention of Wikipedia. Anyway, so it's thought to be an asteroid impact. This is a recent. You may be able to see from this diagram that it's way down there near the tip of South America on the Pacific side. It occurred in the eastern part of the South Pacific Ocean around the Pliocene to Pleistocene boundary approximately. So this is more recent yet. It's only 2 million years ago. The Chicxulub is dated to 66 million. This is only 2 million, but it's much larger. The asteroid, well, actually, no, it's not. Let's see. The asteroid was estimated to be about 1 to 4 kilometers. The Chicxulub is more like 10 to 15, much bigger, because it's volume. So this is 1 to 4 in diameter. No crater associated with the impact has been discovered. Wow, I didn't know that. I thought it was. The impact likely evaporated about 150 cubic kilometers of water, generating large tsunami waves hundreds of meters high. I have read the papers that support those statements. So it does look like there was a strike, but nobody yet has found the crater, which is, it was discovered in 1981 as an iridium anomaly, so that's how the Chicxulub impactor was discovered, again according to Wikipedia, which so far I consider to be absolutely right. So the Eltanin asteroid is about 4 kilometers at the most, traveling with a speed of 20 kilometers per second. Normally that would be in Mach units, but 20 kilometers per second can be translated to Mach. The possible size of the asteroid was calculated by the amount of iridium found in the disturbed sediments. So there were 187 parts per billion of iridium in the asteroid, assuming that the known distribution of the metal leads to estimates that the body was over 1 kilometer in size. Okay, so you have to read the papers to find out, but that is what is said. So the tsunami was very large. Well, I would say it certainly was. It certainly was a very large tsunami. So there you have it, but the Boltish, we didn't really get to the bottom of that. It's found in central Ukraine, in the basin of the Tyasmin River, a tributary of the Dnieper. So we probably were looking at it there. It's somewhere near, because we did see the Dnieper River, although that is a huge feature of Ukraine. And it will now show us in this diagram that it is indeed south of that large reservoir, which is due to a dam in the Dnieper River. So there you have it. That's our production for today. I just thought you would like to see the mountain ranges of the Earth on both sides. There are two. If you observe, there's a footnote for Africa. Africa has its own mountain range, but the other mountain ranges are only 2. So you could say there are 2.5 if you just really are prejudiced against Africa, like that's not really its own continent. Well, I say it is. It has its own mountain range, so there are three. But the African mountain range is quite lonely. It's very small. Compared with the Alpine mountain range, which includes the Himalayas, very interestingly named, the mountain range that covers most of Asia is named after the rather tiny Alpine range. But for Europe, the Alps are the Himalayas. And so I accept this name, although obviously, at least it's better than naming it after the man whose name was Seuss. Like Dr. Seuss, the famous inventor of children's books, which I read them all. I was crazy. I was crazy about Dr. Seuss. Well, this is not Dr. Seuss, although he might be a doctor. He would probably not say Dr. Seuss for obvious reasons if he's ever heard of the cartoonist children's book author. And Dr. Seuss, I think he's great. But that's not the Seuss meant here, who gave the name to the Himalayas, a part of the Alps. So if you're willing to accept that, I'm not sure I'd go that far, just based on size, girth, just mass. The Alps really, just because it's in Europe, well, if you're from Europe, you might name everything after the Alps if they're mountains. If they're connected, and that's what he noticed, you may just want to hear about my idea, which I think can be demonstrated, that the Alps are part of the Himalayas. Okay, now you see the human motive behind. He's trying to get his book read, for Pete's sake. That's how you make money to pay for the bills. So nobody can deny him his right to a little grandstanding. Hey, in science? Oh yeah. Oh, we found a dinosaur that was able to eat entire buildings in Tokyo. They made Godzilla just off of that suggestion. So this goes to the crazy side. So we're always interested in that. Now, aren't we? So Google Earth, I hope you learned something. We did, in fact, home in on the Boltish crater, but we didn't learn much because they didn't find any iridium there. You may want to look for that, so thank you for tuning in. Always a pleasure to talk about science with my fellow seekers. We're trying to learn wisdom from the universe. Well, first you have to read her handwriting if you're going to understand geology, or as I think you can guess now, even the geography of the Earth. Oh, there's more patterns than that. Where do all the dark-skinned people live? South of the equator. Where do all the white-skinned people live? All north of the equator, way up into the snow. And who's the biggest group? Brown. Where do they live? Right in between the whites and blacks. Go figure. I mean, people have developed some strange ideas from this distribution, but it's kind of like that mountain range. It kind of separates the browns from the whites. And then in Africa, you get blacks. They're in India too. They used to be in Saudi Arabia. They're in Australia, Fiji, Samoa. The Melanesian people all the way up into Guadalcanal. Kinky-haired people, they somehow went west to east in the south hemisphere to get to Australia, unless that was just blown apart from Africa, which it wasn't. Nobody's ever said that, but Australia does not look like it's been blown anywhere. It looks like it's the remnant of something else. It just was left behind, and whatever really happened, which we know, was the shoving of a plug, a giant plate that was crammed into the bigger plate of Asia and jammed itself in and made the Himalaya mountain range, which basically extends all the way to the Atlantic Ocean. And what's in between? Arabia and the Mediterranean. So that's the middle of the earth, which we know is where civilization is from. Oh, there's a modern theory that people began in Africa. That has been disproved. People began on the Ararat Plateau. That is well known. You're just not allowed to know that. That gets into religion. I'm a member of the transmission team. We're sometimes called prophets. Don't call me that, although you might. I don't, because a prophet, first of all, in Islam, needs to be a perfect man, lead a perfect life. Well, Muhammad did. I did not. So I'm not a prophet in that sense. But in interpreting prophecy, that is a gift of the Holy Spirit, as promised by Yeshua. So thank you for tuning in. Whatever your religious view, I hope it's all good. Mine certainly is. No threats here. It's salvation. It's to get you out of the trap. Wherever you find that, may Allah bless you. I just happen to know some things you may be interested in. Oh yeah, we'll get into it, but not right now. We're coming up on an hour. Keep looking up. We'll be right back with more geology, the Grand Canyon sequence of stratigraphic layers. You're going to learn them all. You're going to love it, but not them all, because there are dozens. But I'll make it simple, and you'll see at least 3. And you'll never forget them, because they're gorgeous and significant beyond all human words. The writing of Almighty God. May He bless you with His wisdom. Stay tuned.